What's up, fight fans? Thank you so much for joining me once again here on HYFN TV. I'm Kyle Dyer, and we are here to talk about UFC 282 coming up on Saturday, the final pay-per-view event of this year, and it is action-packed. In the co-main event, we've got a fan favorite looking to break into the rankings for the first time in the UFC, and also a former champion in the main event looking for one last shot at the gold. This is the Combat Sports Report on HYFN TV. UFC 282 is upon us, and the final pay-per-view event of the year is in Sin City, Las Vegas, Nevada at the T-Mobile Arena. This one is headlined by Jan Blachowicz and Magomed Ankalaev, but before we get into that one, the bright lights are going to shine on the co-main event as fan favorite Paddy the Baddy Pimblett takes on Jared Flash Gordon. Paddy broke onto the UFC scene in September of 2021 when he knocked out Luigi Vendramini in the first round to earn a Performance of the Night bonus. But he poses the biggest threat to finish fights with his high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, as 9 of his 19 professional wins have come via submission, against 6 knockouts. Paddy is still dangerous on the feet, as he likes to come at his opponents with hard and fast with the hands, forcing them to fight on their heels and either knock them down or pin them up against the cage, where he can continue with a barrage of punches or get into the clinch and score a takedown to work submissions on the mat. This is what we've seen in the last 2 fights, as he hurt both Jordan Levitt and Rodrigo Vargas on the feet before going to the mat and looking for the rear naked choke to get the win. Now, the danger, though, is his blitzing style can sometimes leave him open to take big shots, like we saw in the Vargas fight. Rodrigo stunned Paddy, who left himself open when throwing his own strikes and got taken down. Now, in this case, Pimblett was able to recover and return to his feet, where quickly he scored his own takedown and was able to lock in the submission for the win. But this was a picture of how fighters should take the fight to Pimblett. Now, the question here is Gordon going to be the man to execute this game plan? And quite honestly, my answer to that question is no. Sure, Gordon has a pro record of 19-5, but in his last 9 fights dating back to 2018, he's only 5-4. And not only has he been underwhelming with that record, but he was also finished in all 4 of those losses, having been knocked out in 3 and choked out in 1. The other side that's problematic as well, the old adage, a win's a win, holds true, but all 5 of those wins in the last 9 fight stretch were decision victories. So I look for this fight to be another quick win for the baddie, as Paddy Pimblett has only ever gone the distance 6 times in his 22 pro fights. Look for him to finish Gordon in the early rounds on this fight and keep the hype train rolling in 2023. Now, the main event on this card was supposed to be Jiri Prochazka versus Glover Teixeira for the light heavyweight championship. But Prochazka injured his shoulder just 2 weeks ago and vacated the championship. Teixeira was offered a fight against Magomed Ankalaev for the title, but turned the fight down, citing stylistic differences between Prochazka, who he'd been preparing for, and Ankalaev were too great. So that brings us to where we are today, as the main event of UFC 282 will still be for the light heavyweight championship, but it will feature Magomed Ankalaev versus former champion Jan Blachowicz. This is an interesting twist of fate, as Blachowicz lost the light heavyweight championship to Glover Teixeira in October of 2021. His next fight took place earlier this year in May against top contender Alexander Rakic, which looked like it was going to be a fantastic fight, setting the winner up for a title shot. But with the scorecards tied 1 round to 1, disaster struck in the middle of round 3 when Rakic's knee gave out in a non-contact injury, as later it was confirmed to be a torn right ACL. The fight was immediately stopped, and the TKO victory via doctor stoppage was awarded to Blachowicz, but we were left unsure of what would be next for Jan. Now, another injury has thrust him back into the championship fight, and I'm interested to see how this fight shakes out, as Blachowicz has a striking style very similar in some ways to Paddy Pimblett, as he also likes to blitz forward and shower his opponent with strikes. Although when Jan does it, he does so in shorter spurts and is a bit more polished, keeping his chin tucked and protecting himself during the process. In between these exchanges, Jan also likes to utilize a more traditional kickboxing, mixing in low and middle kicks while striking to the body and head with his hands. It's worth noting that Blachowicz does have 9 submission wins in his pro career. However, only 2 of those had come during his time in the UFC, and the most recent was over 4 years ago. So I don't think that's going to be a very big part of this fight and what his game plan is. If it goes to the ground, I think he's probably going to focus more on his ground and pound, assuming he holds that top position. Ankalaev knows this, and a striking affair is exactly what it is that he wants this fight to become, because he has a grand total of 0 victories via submission in his professional career. But that figure is deceiving, as Ankalaev is a master of sport in combat sambo, which is the highest rank in the discipline that one can achieve. Combat sambo is a discipline that is tailor-made for MMA, as its practitioners, particularly from Dagestan, have quickly become some of the best mixed martial artists in the world. Ankalaev will follow the roadmap that the past and current Dagestani champions like Khabib Nurmagomedov and Islam Makhachev have used to calculate his striking on the feet, as well as the dangerous ground game that they all have. If this one goes to the ground, look for Ankalaev to try and mount the legs on top of his opponent and trap them in a triangle technique, then rain blows down on the defensive opponent, as the positioning of the legs makes it nearly impossible to get up. Now, the one ray of hope that Jan Blachowicz does have in this fight is that Ankalaev isn't quite as known as other combat sambo practitioners for utilizing this leg mount triangle technique, generally preferring to stay standing and make it a kickboxing match. So if he does this, I think we will have an exciting fight that could go either way, as both fighters have the power to turn their opponent's lights out at any point in time. But whenever the matchup is close in MMA, look at the ages of the fighters. When there is a big age gap between the fighters, the younger fighter wins the majority of the time. And with Ankalaev being 9 years younger than Blachowicz, I think that his time has run out for the former champion, and I think we see Magomed Ankalaev becoming light heavyweight champion on Saturday. But we'll have to see how this one plays out. Now let's take a look at the rest of the card. 13 fights on tap on Saturday, with the early prelims beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Mountain. And we'll start in the men's bantamweight division, as Cameron Saman versus Stephen Kozlow is the fight to open up the card. Next up, we'll have a men's flyweight bout, as Vinicius Salvador takes on Daniel Da Silva. Third fight of the evening will be a men's featherweight bout, as TJ Brown takes on Eric Silva. And in the men's featherweight division, Billy Quarantillo will take on Alexander Hernandez. Prelims will begin 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain, and will start in the middleweight division as number 15 Chris Curtis takes on Joaquin Buckley. Moving along, second fight on the prelims will be a middleweight bout with Edmund Shabazian taking on Dulce Mugambula. Heavyweight division, third one, don't blink in this one, someone will go to sleep, as we have Jairzinho Rosenstrike taking on Chris Daukaus. And the featured prelim of the evening is in the men's bantamweight division, as it features the youngest fighter ever to be signed to the UFC, signed off of Dana White's Contender Series back in September of this year when he was only 17 years old. But guess what? He just turned 18 on October the 8th. We've got Paul Rosas Jr., the young phenom, taking on Jay Parrott. Main card kicks off 10 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Mountain, and it's going to start with number 9, Bryce Mitchell in the featherweight division versus number 14, Ilia Topuria. Keep a close eye on this one. Bryce Mitchell has a ton of tricks in his arsenal. He has one of only 3 twister submissions in the UFC history. So definitely keep an eye on this one. Should be a fantastic grappling match, as Topuria also knows his way around the mat. Moving along, second fight of the night in the middleweight division, number 10, Darren Till, taking on number 14, Dricus du Plessis. In the welterweight division, third fight of the night on the main card, Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Alex Morono. And that brings us to the co-main event of the evening in the lightweight division, Paddy Pimblett taking on Jared Gordon. And then the main event for the light heavyweight championship, we've got number 3, Jan Blachowicz, taking on number 4, Magomed Ankalaev. And that's it for the Combat Sports Report this week on HYFN TV. Tune in to us every week live on HYFN TV. But if you miss us, not a problem. You can also check us out on demand, hyfntv.com, or on your Roku device. We've always got your latest news, rankings, and reactions to the UFC and more. So always check us out. Check us out next week. Also, after this card, we will have our reactions for UFC 282 in the first part of the week. And then later on, we will review what's coming up in the UFC. But outside of that, I'm Kyle Dyer. This is the